Welcome to another Ziva Math video. In this video, we're going to learn about adding integers. Let's get to our examples. Let's start with adding integers with the same sign. Here we have positive 8 plus positive 6. And if it looks like a problem that you've been doing since you first learned how to add, go ahead and just add these numbers together. Positive 8 plus positive 6, 8 plus 6 is 14. Now, you can have a negative plus a negative. Here we have negative 7 plus a negative 2. We're going to go ahead and add 7 plus 2 is 9, and we're going to keep that negative sign. So our answer is negative 9. So our rule for adding integers with the same sign is we're going to add the numbers and we're going to keep the sign. Now, with this example, some of you are going to be more comfortable treating it as a subtraction problem, and you'll see it again in our subtracting integers video. But you can think about it as adding integers with the same sign because we have the two negative signs. So this is actually negative 3 plus negative 4 and you can think about it that way. Or, as I said, you can treat it like a subtraction problem. But if you want to think about it as negative 3 plus negative 4, we're looking at the same rules. We have a negative plus a negative, so we're going to add 3 and 4, and we get 7, and we keep that negative sign. Negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7. In this example, we have 12 plus negative 4. We have a positive plus a negative. So we're adding integers with different signs. We're going to start by looking at the absolute values of our numbers. The absolute value of 12 is 12, and the absolute value of negative 4 is 4. Because when we add integers with different signs, we're going to be subtracting their absolute values. And the absolute value of 12 is the larger number. So we're going to start with 12, and we're going to be subtracting the absolute value of negative 4, which was 4. So now we have 12 minus 4, and 12 minus 4 is 8. Now we need to determine whether the 8 should be positive or negative. And to do that, we go back to our absolute values. And we're going to find the number with the larger absolute value, that's the 12, and the 12 was positive. So our 8 is going to need to be positive. So 12 plus negative 4 is positive 8. In this example, we have 3 plus negative 8. So we have a positive integer plus a negative integer. So we're adding integers with different signs. So we're going to start by looking at their absolute values. The absolute value of 3 is 3, and the absolute value of negative 8 is 8. Because when you add integers with different signs, you're going to be subtracting their absolute values. So the number with the largest absolute value is the negative 8. So we're going to start with its absolute value of 8 minus the absolute value of 3, which is 3. And 8 minus 3 is 5. Now we need to determine whether 5 is going to be positive or negative. To do that, we go back to our absolute values, and we're looking at the number with the larger absolute value. The number with the larger absolute value is the negative 8, so our 5 has to be negative. So 3 plus negative 8 is negative 5. This example is negative 10 plus 5, a negative plus a positive. So we're adding integers with different signs. So we'll start with the absolute values of negative 10 and 5. The absolute value of negative 10 is 10, and the absolute value of 5 is 5. Because when you add integers with different signs, you're going to be subtracting their absolute values. So the number with the larger absolute value, the negative 10, we'll start with its absolute value of 10, and we're going to subtract 5. So 10 minus 5 is 5. And now we need to determine whether the 5 should be positive or negative. So we're going back to our absolute values, and we need the number with the larger absolute value. That's the negative 10. So our 5 is going to be a negative. So negative 10 plus 5 is negative 5. In this example, we have negative 22 plus 35. So adding integers with different signs because we have a negative plus a positive. So we're going to start with the absolute values of these numbers. The absolute value of negative 22 is 22, and the absolute value of 35 is 35. Because when you add integers with different signs, you're going to begin by subtracting their absolute values. So the number with the larger absolute value, the 35, is what we need first, and we're going to subtract the 22 from it, the absolute value of the negative 22. And 35 minus 22 is 13, 5 minus 2 is 3, and 3 minus 2 is 1. Now I have to determine whether the 13 is positive or negative. And to do that, we're going back to our absolute values, and we are looking for the number with the larger absolute value. That's the 35. And because the 35 is positive, that means our answer of 13 is also going to be positive. So negative 22 plus 35 is positive 13. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to Ziva Math for more videos.